This is Father Damien Richards, pastor of St. Nicholas of Myra and Hayes and St. Francis of Assisi in Munger. And I have here, this is a picture of the cross of San Damiano, which I'll talk about with regards to St. Francis. Francis, as he was figuring out his vocation before he took on the brown robe and began the Franciscan order, Francis was praying before this crucifix. And it was in the ruins of the church of San Damiano outside the city of Assisi. While praying before it, Francis heard the cross talk to him, and the cross said, "Francis, rebuild my church." Since the chapel of San Damiano was in ruins, Francis took it literally. That's what he did. He rebuilt the church. But as we know, there was much more to Francis' story than simply rebuilding a chapel. Now, how did Francis realize this? Well, more on that later. First, I'm going to talk about the icon. Icons look funny because everything in an icon has a symbol. It's not that they didn't know how to draw people realistically in the Middle Ages, but they used icons and paintings as ways to illustrate spiritual truths. So what spiritual truths can you find in this picture? Well, one spiritual truth is the largest figure on the icon, and it's Jesus. Jesus is the largest because he's the most important. And Jesus is represented as both wounded and strong. He is bleeding from the sides. His wounds are bleeding, but he is not in pain. He is reigning as king. So he's being crucified, but he's also reigning in heaven. It's both at the same time. And it's there with the big picture of him, and it's also with him reigning in heaven up above at the top. There are angels on either side of the cross, and the angels are marveling over this, that Christ is dying, but he's also reigning, that God is dying for us. He's shedding his blood. Now, the next largest images are the figures next to the cross of Christ. It's Mary, the mother of Jesus, and St. John, the beloved disciple. Then there's also Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and the centurion, who in Mark's gospel proclaims this is truly the Son of God. And there are two smaller figures down there as well. They are representing witnesses to the crucifixion. Longinus, the Roman soldier who pierced the side of Jesus with a lance, and the soldier who offered Jesus the sponge soaked in vinegar. As the eye thirst, and so they gave him a sponge soaked with vinegar. And down at the very bottom, underneath the feet of Jesus, there are six figures there. There are six people there, but the picture is so damaged we can't tell who it is. Scholars love to argue over which saints they would be. But if you're going to put yourself in this picture, and that's one of the purposes of contemplating a picture like this, if you're going to put yourself in the picture, realistic, we all know where we'd want to be. We want to be there at the foot of the cross with Mary and John. But if we're going to be honest, we're down here. We're down at the bottom. That we want to get up to the top, but we're not worthy to get up to the top. And so we're striving in order to be worthy of God's mercy for that. Now, one thing about the picture in general and the cross of San Damiano, Francis sold himself short when he heard the call of God's call for him. He thought that it meant, well, I'm going to rebuild this chapel, and then I'm done. I've done everything God wants me to do. But Francis had no idea of just what heights God wanted for him. Which brings me to another image of another dream. This is a picture of the dream that I'm going to describe. At the time Francis was rebuilding San Damiano, the Pope at the time, Pope Innocent, had a dream. And in the Pope's dream, the church of St. John Lateran, which was the main church of Rome, was falling down. And only one man was trying to hold up that church. That man, of course, was Francis of Assisi. And that's what's going on in this picture. You see, there's Innocent, there's the Pope, and he's asleep. That's the Pope in his chapel, in his bedroom, asleep. And then there's the Church of John Lateran, and then there's Francis striving mightily to hold up the church. So Francis was rebuilding the church. When the cross told Francis to rebuild the church, it wasn't just one chapel, it was to revitalize all of the church, to revitalize the Catholic Church. So, now, I know all of you who are watching this video have already committed yourselves to following Christ, and that is good and noble. Also, you all have an idea of what it would mean. This is what it means for me to be a follower of Christ. This is how I'm supposed to live my life. But don't sell yourself short, because what God has planned for you is just as incredible as what God had planned for St. Francis when St. Francis began. And so, trust in God and trust that His plan is greater than your plan. And may St. Francis inspire you to follow Christ this day.